old house was the last thing Evelyn ever wanted to buy. It sat at the end of a dead-end street, its Victorian facade a tapestry of peeling paint and ivy. But the price was a steal, and as a collector of vintage dolls, she saw it as a gilded cage for her new obsession. The dolls of a long-dead girl named Adelaide. The previous owner, a jittery man who refused to beat her eyes, told her only two things. The dolls stay with the house. Don't touch them. Evelyn ignored the warning, of course. Who could resist? The dolls were a collection of 19th century porcelain and bisque figures, their tiny painted faces eerily lifelike. They were all set up in a grand sun-filled room at the back of the house, as if holding court for an invisible audience. She began her work, carefully cataloging each one, a thrill of ownership coursing through her veins. The first few weeks were a dream. She spent her days in the doll room meticulously cleaning and arranging the figures. But then, small things started. A doll's head, which she had sworn was facing the wall, would be turned towards her. A tiny hand, once resting in a lap, would be raised as if waving. She laughed it off, chalking it up to the house settling or her own forgetfulness. Then came the sounds. A faint, childish giggle would echo from the hallway, only to stop the moment she opened the door. The sound of tiny tapping footsteps would sometimes follow her room to room, a soft rhythmic patter that was always just a whisper away. The most disturbing sound, however, was the music box. She had found a ornate, gilded music box on a shelf, its mechanism broken, but sometimes, in the dead of night, she would hear a single hollow note, as if the key had been struck. One night, the music box played its full, mournful melody. Evelyn froze in her bed, her heart a drum against her ribs. It wasn't just a sound, it was an invitation. She crept out of the bed and made her way to the doll room. The moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dolls like an audience in a theater. The music box sat on a small table in the center of the room, playing its tune. But it wasn't the music box that sent a cold shock through her. It was a doll. A tiny porcelain girl in a blue dress, standing in the middle of the room. She had put her on a shelf the day before. Now, she was on the floor, her vacant stare fixed on the music box. As she watched, the doll slowly, jerkingly, lifted her tiny porcelain hand and rested it on the box. The music stopped. Evelyn stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. The doll turned its head slowly, the painted eyes locking onto her. It wasn't a trick of the night, it was real. She spent the rest of the night huddled in her bed, a silent prayer on her lips. The next morning, she decided she had to get rid of them. She wasn't a collector, she was a prisoner. She found a heavy-duty packing box and began to carefully place the dolls inside. As she reached for the last one, the girl in the blue dress, she noticed something. There, etched into the base of her tiny foot, was the name, Adelaide. She dropped the doll as if it was a burning coal. A whisper, dry and brutal like dead leaves, slithered into her mind. You can't get rid of us. We are the collection. Evelyn turned and looked around the room. The boxes she had filled were now empty. The dolls were back on their shelves, in their chairs, standing in their perfect, unsettling positions. A new wave of fear washed over her, one that went beyond the supernatural. It was a fear of being owned, of having her free will stolen. That night she couldn't sleep. The giggling, the footsteps, the whispers, they were all constant. She closed her eyes and saw the face of Little Miss Adelaide, her cold, painted eyes staring back at her. When she woke up, she was sitting in the doll room. Her legs were crossed, and her hands were clasped in her lap. She tried to stand, to move, but couldn't. She felt a terrible weight, a stillness, a sense of being trapped. She looked at her hands. They weren't her own. They were small, delicate, and made of porcelain. Her skin was smooth and cold. Her eyes were wide and unblinking. She saw her reflection in a small hand mirror on the table. A doll's face, a perfect replica of her, stared back. She was the newest addition to the collection, a tiny, lifeless figurine in a world of silent, painted eyes.